Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Niagara Hockey Coaches Seminar webinar series. My name is Wes Wolf, one of the founders of the Niagara Hockey Coaches Seminar, along with Murray Nystrom, Greg Capillero, and Wayne Chapman. Before we get going today, one thing we've always tried to do with our webinar series and our seminars in the 3 years previous is link some social awareness. And just wanted to bring your attention to a really important cause that has a lot of ties to many of us. The Friends of McGill University Hockey are offering a 2-day coaching seminar that starts today, actually. And there is a registration fee that's going to be donated to an education fund to help the families of Martin Ruche and Kelly Nobes, both of whom are McGill alumni who tragically passed away. Martin was a really popular team captain and community leader, and at the time of his passing, Kelly was actually the head coach at McGill. So if you visit the Friends of McGill hockey Twitter feed, there's a lot more details, but there are some great speakers there as well, including Jamie Compon, Mike Babcock, and Guy Boucher. And actually, the event is being organized in part by Dave Urquhart, who's a McGill alum and presented for us at the Niagara Hockey Coaches Seminar a couple of years ago. Today's session is going to be about 45 minutes, and then we'll hold a 5 to 10 minute Q&A. So if you want to type in your questions in the chat or the Q&A function, we'll get to them at the end. And I guess without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Matt Ellis. Matt is the director at the Academy of Hockey at the Harbor Center. I won't dive in too much. I know he's got an intro, so I'll just turn it over to Matt because he's got a great presentation for you today, and I'd love to turn it over to him. So Matt, all you.
Well, thank you very much, Wes, and good morning to everyone that's on the call here. It's for me an exciting opportunity. It's kind of crazy that this is the topic with what we've decided to speak on today, with something near and dear to my heart, full of a lot of passion. And again, just to share a little bit about my personal life, this talks about preparation and dealing with adversity. The family's been battling a little raccoon problem in the attic here, so been a couple sleepless nights and figuring out how to grind through it. But enough about that. Again, thanks to Wes for putting this together. To everybody that is on the call, first and foremost, I'm hoping everyone's staying active, staying healthy and safe during what the world is facing right now. Anybody that has family that works in the healthcare industry, please pass along my thank you for what they're doing and currently continue to do during this time of need in the world. I think this is great. This is I said to Wes prior to the call, this has turned into a community about learning. Coaching is a fraternity. Doesn't matter if it's youth hockey, National League. Doesn't matter if you're a player, a father, anybody that wants to learn. It's a community about learning. And I think this is a great platform to put people in contact, put people in touch. We're all here for the same purpose. It's about learning, growing, and trying to be better today. So again, my presentation is the art of preparation, and to sum it up simply, it's about self-discovery first and foremost. The subheading is helping players see opportunity in adversity. I mean, through self-discovery, through some experimentation, through understanding certain things, you're able to dive into that self-discovery. This presentation is based on essentially how a coach can help identify, facilitate. There's going to be some concepts both on ice and off ice. A lot of this are for instances that I've been dealing with during this time through consultations and some of the challenges that players and people are facing. A little bit about my background: born and raised in Welland, Ontario. I played 4 years in the Ontario League for Toronto St. Mike's Majors, and two at Maple Leaf Gardens, two in the small rink. I was an undrafted free agent by the Detroit Red Wings. I don't want to jump too much into my playing career. The only thing that I'll say is Detroit is the only national team that I ever spoke to in 4 years of major junior. I found a way to land a contract by seeing the right person, making the right impression, and was able to carve my way through the East Coast Hockey League, through the American League, into the NHL for an extended stay. Prior to my playing career, I accepted a job here in Buffalo. It's where I reside with my wife and 3 kids. And I knew that coaching of some sort was going to be my way back into the game that was never going to leave me. I decided to jump in on the development stream. Started as a development coach here at the Academy of Hockey, was promoted to head development coach and later became the director, which again, having the opportunity, like all of us on this call, to have impact and influence is essentially what drives the bus these days. Prior to this call, familiar feelings going through a little bit of a routine just to go in. It's no matter if you're on this side of it or you're still on the ice doing what you do, the feelings are still the same when you prepare to perform. And that's where I'm at now. On any given day, I could be working with a player in the National Hockey League 1 hour and turn around on the same sheet of ice and head right back to work with a group of novices. So I'm working with a wide spectrum on the development scale. And again, it's not so much about, you know, the teaching and the coaching. It's greatly about the learning, and that's part of the premise about this. I am a youth hockey coach as well in the Buffalo Junior Sabres organization. I have 2 sons that both play 2009 and 2007. I'm involved with both of their teams as well as the director of coaching for the organization. So I have a full diet of hockey, but again, it's a love for all. This presentation will be based on 3 premises, and I believe this is part of the uniqueness of the whole thing. Everybody's path into coaching is different. I've lived it as a player from the bottom up through my minor hockey years right to the National League. I'm seeing it as a dad, the trials, the tribulations, you know, what it means to be in the youth hockey landscape today. And I'm paying it forward again as a coach where, you know, it's come full circle, and now I'm back into the development game. So where we're going to start, opportunities inside adversity, and adversity goes through many different definitions, but essentially we're looking at challenging and troubles. I'll start with a quote. I'm a big believer in quotes that correlate and connect, and that's just something unique for me. Life isn't about waiting for the storms to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. You know, it starts with, what are the storms? And right now, you know, most of us can define what the storms are. I'm sure we all have athletes that are talking, you know, I don't have equipment at home. I don't have access to ice. I don't know what to do. I don't have a workout program. I don't have a space. Part of this from our end as coaches is understanding what those storms are. And again, the on-ice storms can be a little bit different. Can be roll, can be ice time, can be injuries. There's different things. Can be, you know, the social interaction. You also want to ask and get to know who you're dealing with. What is your role? Coach, where do you fit in all this and help and facilitate, you know, the art of preparation and being able to deal with troubling times? Ask the question, where can we go? How can we get there? And I bolded, why is it important? And I'm sure we can all agree that in today's day, the why is important. And especially when it comes to being prepared, especially when it comes to understanding where in the games your opportunities lie, when will it happen, and what does it look like? I always believe in starting from a coaching standpoint is you need to ask the questions. And once you start asking the questions to your players, you can start digging into aspects of their game. So a lot of times when I speak with players I'm working with, you know, these are some of the questions in my head that I need to have answers so that I can come up with some direction in a game plan. And a lot of times the target is aspects within the game. You know, hockey is what bonds us. If you're working with players, that's kind of where your connection starts. So if you can dig in on certain aspects of the game, you can almost use that as your road in, because this, like anything else, is relationship based. I believe preparation, or what I refer to the art of preparation, is a true blend between scientific numbers and again the feel factor, the C factor, and being able to take the two and weave them together is huge. So in your mind, ask those questions, and that allows you to dig in, and that allows you to use, you know, some form of a platform that's common to your bond with that athlete as your pathway to make some of those instant connections. Because what we're essentially trying to do here is, one, we're trying to educate on, you know, why preparation is important. And two, when it comes to dealing with troubling times or some of the bumps in the road, where can that connection lie? So I really feel that those things are huge in order to dig in. And obviously right now, coaches, we're in one of the storms, and I'm sure, you know, athletes are asking these questions. I know I'm being asked. I'm sure a lot of others are being asked is, you know, how can we proceed? How can we take this and use this for some kind of good, and eliminate some of the excuses that fall through? So I really truly believe that if you can start, you know, asking yourself those questions and allowing you to dig in on your athletes, it's going to help you identify certain things within their makeup, within their personality, that, you know, maybe give you a little bit of an advantage. Ask the questions and plant the seeds. And I know we just went through, you know, some of the inquiries about where you can go, but again, if you start with different things, and again, simplicity is usually best, because you're trying to gain some internal, some insight, and understanding. I believe it can be as simple as, you know, asking what your current activity levels are. What's a standard day look like? What do you have access to, and what's your education? Again, all players have different levels of education on their craft, and on their game, and on training, and all the above. Also, everybody has different access to different things at their disposal, especially right now with players training from home and still wanting to become better at their sport. Do I believe you can become better off the ice right now? There's certain elements and aspects, absolutely, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But again, wanting to know the challenges, wanting to see where that player's vision is, what the goals are. Goal setting is another, you know, big area of opportunity. And again, when you're dealing on an individualistic level, you need to know where that athlete stands before you can help facilitate anything moving forward. And again, about that forward process, where's the hunger? You know, what are you looking at doing? I believe, and again, I'm stealing here quotes, but I believe questions and observations are your pickaxes. And that gives you that understanding again, and it gets you deeper and it gets you on the inside. Following that, I usually go through a follow-up routine, you know, of my own. And again, it starts with, you know, what's that player's routine look like, and how can, as a coach, help you maybe develop and structure that? Where's your schedule? Triggers. For me, triggers are rituals. And again, when it comes to preparing, you know, what gets scheduled gets done. So that one for me is easy. When you're talking with players, what gets scheduled get done. You make an appointment with yourself, it usually gets done. If you put some structure to your routine, those two go hand in hand. But for me, the big one here is the triggers, and they're essentially rituals that players will go through. And again, a lot of this is based on the off-ice conditions that we're going through right now, where it's challenges with workouts. Well, if you wake up in the morning and you know, you don't have anything set out, you don't have a workout scheduled, you don't have training time, you don't have anything. It's no different with schoolwork. You need to put things that spark a certain thought into your brain or into your mind. I suggest players put their workout clothes where they can see them. Put a notebook somewhere. You know, if hydration is important, you have a bottle of water nearby. Things that put you in the right state of mind to start thinking on, okay, we're going to do this. About priming your state and putting yourself into a peak state. And I believe that triggers, leaving little subtleties. And again, it doesn't matter necessarily that level that the trainer plays or the player plays at, is that those things can be that certain spark that helps you take steps forward. And again, it's about that forward progress. Triggers for me were always, you know, bottles of water for hydration, headphones because I knew I thrived on music, having my coffee cup and my protein shaker on the counter when I went downstairs, workout clothes, shoes arranged, and my home gym always set up so it was in working order, so that when I could go through those rituals and that routine, I was in that prime state to train. Same thing driving to the rink, about music, the way that you go, you can create that. I think that's a big area that players, especially in challenging times, can fall back on. Consistency is huge. That gives you consistency, those rituals that common. I have capture here. I'm a big believer in capturing certain things on paper, because what gets captured on paper makes things real. Start to dig in. Where are the areas of opportunity here after that initial inquiry? Where's your current level of preparation at? How do you deal with challenges? What are your habits? Can we create some connectivity between coaching knowledge and now some of the inquiries we've had with the players? Is this player resourceful? What's he willing to do? Back to access and education. Is he willing to dig in, invest? Is he willing to invest time to search? Is he willing to invest in his own quest, or take something cookie cutter that was made for someone else and just say that's good enough, or check a box and said, I worked today. How did you work? Did you invest for your own personal gain, building your skill set to the uniqueness of your game? For me, resourcefulness and investment of time go hand in hand. It's what are you willing to do? A big believer in the man in the glass analogy, and it comes down to that. I believe there's no right or wrong, but there's right for you and wrong for you. And where these lead players from that standpoint is understanding, what's your right and wrong, what makes you tick, where's your motivation? Because again, back to the start, this is about self-discovery. Part of this is that self-discovery, because it is so unique. The only way to go through this is to experiment to find out. But if you're not willing for that forward progress in those steps, you're never going to you're never going to reach that full potential and understand where you're going. Something interesting that I came across earlier during this pandemic, with all the time searching, was Gary Roberts was asked, who I have a ton of respect for with where he's at and his body of work, is about a return to the National League this year and what that would look like. He gave his opinion. He said 1/3 of the players will be on top of their game, ready to go. 1/3 will be in and around that level that's that's NHL level, with a little bit of seasoning they can get back, and that other 1/3 might have some issues. And again, part of that is that internal drive. These are adverse conditions. These are conditions that were hard for anybody to foresee coming. But again, within this demographic, and again, it resonated with me, because I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't only make sense when you look at the current conditions, but even if you look back and evaluate coaches, if you take a look at your teams, skill guys, if you take a look at your sessions and you start looking and going back through your notes, and I think there's something there when you look at group demographic. And again, a lot of it comes from, and here I have intrinsic motivation, which is essentially, what drives the bus internally. Where are you? What is that made of? Intrinsic motivation. I have a slide after about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. What drives you on the inside? The extrinsic motivation, that's different for everybody. That could be chasing money, chasing fame, chasing a title, chasing championships. Those are things that are, a little bit external, that are out of your control. And again, for players, what story do you want to tell through all this? When you break it up into thirds, what third do you want to be in? And that's where, in times like this, there's a bubble of time where you can take this and really come out in the 1/3 that you want. You want to be in that top third. You want to be in that bottom third. But again, that drive is internal. And us as coaches, we can help nourish that. We talk about planting seeds. Well, now we need to start figuring out, how can we water these seeds with our athletes? How can we get a certain level of understanding? And how can we guide and build the process, of basically creating the right habits in order to facilitate and go through this? Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. It's about the state of mind. What's inside? What fires together, wires together. And I love this line: what fires together, wires together. Again, no ice, no problem. But you know what? There's certain things now. Everybody holds their phone. Everybody's online. You can look up certain things on mental training. You can look up what the benefits are of certain things when you do meditations and visualization and different things. There's a real area of exploration if you're willing to discover and experiment, where you can go and you can make incremental changes that'll have a positive effect on a player coming through times of challenge. But again, there has to be that willingness. And for coaches, it's all about us understanding. I believe this to be important. It's a player's game. And basically, I put from a coaching standpoint, I'm here for you. And again, you need that player to be able to make a choice. And that's what autonomy is about. It's make a choice. But what we need to do as coaches is we need to help those players tell the story. They need to tell the story. And then we take that story and we help to see. A line that I use with a lot of people that I work with are, talk to yourself, don't listen. Talk to yourself, don't listen. It allows you to tell yourself the story. When you talk to yourself, you can convince yourself on doing most things. But again, talking to yourself and telling yourself a story has to be done through a very realistic, developed lens so that things don't get blurred and there can be conflict. Because again, coaches, we all know there's a lot of players that tell themselves stories, and it's night and day different from what we see, what we feel, and what the true reality is. But again, as we dig in and we go through understanding what's motivating, where the drivers are, where they're at, what the storms are, what the challenges are that they face, we can help nourish their story and get them to a better place. Because again, talking to yourself, you can talk yourself into most things. And when you get to the real victory of it is when that talk to yourself, you're basically looking for challenges because you're so used to telling yourself the right stories that the challenges really don't exist anymore. But again, it's about allowing that discovery. You need the players to walk and talk. They need to go through. They need to create. They need to create during work. They need that to be in that peak state. As a coach, you need to understand when they're in that peak state and maybe what we can do to help them in. It's a little easier when you're dealing with, a small group or individual groups, but it's the same within, within coaching staffs and teams. Different things make those different players go. And it's about helping those players go. And especially when you get to tough times, because that's when things go. The mastery part of this, it's about owning your craft. And that's where players want to get to. That's part of coaching for us. But again, that's a choice that the players have to make. And you hope that their greater purpose, there's that internal drive. I know for myself personally, this is where I lived and made a career as a player. Just understanding this. I was speaking prior to coming on today with Wes again, and I talked about, for me, there was a balance that I think I loved preparing and the feelings that came along with preparing just as much as I loved performing, and it lived right here in that autonomy, that mastery, and that sense of purpose. Just real quick, right now I consider what we're in the off season. And in the off season, it's about psychology. So a couple of quick points about the off season and where some of the challenges lie for all of us is difference in the off season and in season. In season has some gratification. You practice, you play. You practice a couple times, you play again. It moves, it ebbs and it flows. In the off season, sure, there's certain things that boxes you check in the gym or during your skill sessions or where you want to get to, validation through video, validation through numbers, but it doesn't have that same sense of necessarily spirit that I think is a real driving force. And that's a challenge, again, as coaches, and it's a challenge for athletes as well, as they go through that grind of the off season, and it's looking about finding those validation points. I'm a huge believer in once you go through your questions and now you're dialed and you're understanding your athlete and you're understanding a little bit about how they prepare, what's important to them, where the drivers are, you're at a point where I call it know the excuses before the excuses. Right here during the off season, and same thing during the in season, there's excuses. Know them before they become excuses and help connect and guide where those excuses are and look to steer and assist around them. I mean, you look at it, the excuses in our world are, I can't get on the ice. I didn't get enough ice. I'm tired. I feel bad. I'm fatigued. I'm hurt. There's stuff going on in my personal life. There's stuff in my social life. This person doesn't like me. That person doesn't like me. I don't like my role. Do your homework. through this process and understand where the excuses are, because it'll help push forward this process of getting down to owning your process and loving what it takes to be at your best. It takes steps forward on a day-to-day. When you walk into the rink, a lot of times, and this is where the psychology goes, is again, it's back to those triggers. For some people, it's you walk into the rink, it creates an instant emotional response. Physical feelings inside, just that state of being. And again, if you can recreate that during your off season, I think the two go hand in hand. Again, it's back to rituals and what's ritualistic. It's again what triggers those emotional responses. And again, this is back to the season has gratification. If you can recreate those feelings through your training in the off season, on ice, off ice, it doesn't matter. If you can recreate those feelings and that emotional response that triggers through a player's rituals, which you as a coach, along with the player, can kind of help define, steer, guide, and nourish, you're going to have a win come the in season, because again, it's familiar and you understand. Maybe part of the emotional response is nerves, some anxiety. If you can create some of those same feelings to fight through during your off-season grind, your players are going to be better for it. You're going to be better connected, because the two of you as coach and player is going to have a better understanding of where that is. Again, it's the simplicity of everything. It's relationships, communication, care, and creating those bonds of trust where the barriers come down. There's a real opportunity. We're in what I consider the off-season grind right now. So again, as you're speaking with your players and kind of seeing where they're at, this is a big piece to the puzzle. Create the discussion. Relationships matter. Communication's huge. Relationships matter. Know each athlete is unique. Certain things that make them tick. Know the areas that you're going to explore, where those seeds are planted. Help them create that avenue in that roadmap. Don't just assume. There's a lot of players are funny. We live in a world a lot of times where you're always told what to do. Practice here, play here, eat here, travel here, sleep here, get up here. Don't just assume that your players understand that map. And this is where it gets, again, tricky in the off season. Help provide what those avenues look like, what those maps look like. Assign asks. I think it's a great piece to ask players questions, ask them questions often, know when to ask those questions. And again, 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen, 2 eyes as well. Observation is huge. You can learn, you take in your info, and that's where I'm a believer. Your plan, your pivot, and proceed come in, is taking in that information. Again, you want to equip yourself with as much knowledge as you can. Pride. This is one of my favorite quotes where it pertains to athlete preparation. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. An Abraham Lincoln quote. I think it says everything about how important the preparation part is prior to the performance. That everything underneath that no one necessarily sees is what leads to the moment. Developing a love for the ride. How can you do that? I believe developing and preparation as an art, they are soft skills that can become hard skills through repetition, through training, through building, through doing, owning that process, being accountable to who. Athletes there's a need where you're accountable to you. There's other people outside, but it has to be you first. And that goes along with understanding that ownership of the process, that you have to do it. You have to develop that discipline. Athletes want to feel the personal touch from a coach. And this is where throughout that ride is they want to feel that connectivity. The greatest gift that as a coach you can give is the gift of confidence. And again, when it comes to being prepared, being dialed into your craft, giving that confidence is the greatest springboard to continue to build off of. It'll vary depending on athletes. You need to find ways, again, to use it. and to stay open. This next piece for me is huge. When we're talking about preparation, I call it mining for gold and capture. I speak to athletes often, and my points are, as athletes, experiment, educate, take pride in owning your process. There's a need for see, there's a need for feel. Build your book, pay it down the line at some place and moments that matter. And I'll use a quick example here. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who's fresh out of the game, looking to get into coaching. And he had asked, where should he start? And these are things that I did as a player that are coming back, that are allowing me to pay certain things down the line. I like to capture certain things. Put this together fresh out of playing. And it's basically a 5-page document that I documented as making it as a pro player. And these aren't things like, score X amount of goals and put up points and this and that. These are things as simple as buy the trainer a coffee and it goes a long way. Be seen in the gym, grab extra water when you get off the plane or off the bus to take care of your hydration. Anything that was in your brain, but those are things that I was able to capture going, back 4 years, where went back even further to probably 14 of my playing years, where those lessons now you're able to take and you're able to pay forward. Some of them I can transfer to players that I work with. But again, even if we can get players now to start capturing certain things, understanding where that self-exploration is, what makes you tick, what drives you, what time of day, do you have your best training sessions, whether the night before, when you ate, how did you perform the next day? Know certain things, pre-game routines. And again, it's hard all the time to be with a book, and we're all coaching different levels. But if your athletes can capture things, have a notebook laying around, having paper handy. For me, a lot of this goes on, I know my creative times. When I work out, if I don't have a notebook, I'm at a loss, because that's when some of the best ideas come. But again, through the self-discovery, if they can start capturing this and build their book, their own unique book, understanding, what part of preparation do you like? What workouts get you going? What rituals work? Pre-game meals, all of it. If you can capture certain things, you can always go back and mine for gold. This one right here, the second one, this will be the last one I hold up like this. During this work from home, I went back, a lot of players calling, looking for advice on training. I went back and said, this is unique as well for me. Let me take a look. That what I held up was my lockout journal from the last NHL lockout, where we were training. Yes, there was ice and it was different times in the world, but there were certain lessons that I was able to pull from there, understand the psychology and see where things were going and what players were feeling. What I did that maybe I can help pay down the line, and it's about moments that matter. If you capture certain things, you can always go back and look at moments and figure out kind of where those moments are, what left that success. Who holds the power? It's imperative that athletes understand at any age, non-negotiable, what you're in control of, what you're not in control of, and how you're going to respond to those. Back to the man in the glass mentality. Who's judging who? What are you willing to do when no one else is watching? These are imperative that players understand this, know this, and as coaches, these are certain things that on every opportunity need to make sure are in some way, shape, or form facilitated, so there's a great understanding in this. The non-controllable piece, those are your excuses. Again, know the excuses within the excuses. A lot of these things aren't in your control. You have to be able to take control of yourself. You have to be able to own it. And again, it's simplicity, but it's simple, not easy. Another one of my favorite quotes from a strength coach: simple, not easy. These things here, imperative. Know the excuses before the excuses. Understand the athlete. Hit home that message and nourish the message where it comes to your controllables, so that everybody understands and it starts to build what I like to call calluses. Again, I think callousing certain things so that there's no cracks in that armor are huge. One of the things I encourage a lot of coaches to do, whether it's strength coaches or on-ice coaches, is have your players design one of their own individual sessions, or even a drill once in a while, at least once a week. and put some ownership back on them. And it's a show me. Yeah, okay. And then what that does is it creates the ground for discussion around why did you do that? And maybe, look at this. How did you like this? Where again, it comes down to being communicative, but also collaborative in the process. And again, what you've done is you've put more control on something that they can own. Show me your Saturday workout. Okay, yeah, let's discuss it. That's awesome. Keep going. And you continue to build those calluses in a non-threatening way. Again, it's about planting the seeds and watering those seeds. I find that there'd be huge success there. Just the same thing. And people that know me know I love to lift weights and train. I tell strength coaches often, they ask me, about players in the off season. I said, check their hands. And if their hands are calloused up, they put in the work. Where do you fit, coach? About nourishing the roots. 24-hour coaching. Okay. Coaching is about influence. But you have to look at it. In 24 hours, the athlete's a 24-hour coach. He's the one that's in control of his thoughts, his actions, where he goes, what he does, how he does it. Mom and dad, parents are a 23-hour coach in youth hockey. Maybe the teacher's your 8-hour coach. Maybe you as their hockey coach, maybe you're the 2-hour coach out of that 24. Understand what their surrounding support looks like. Understand, what that looks like away from the rink and who's on the team. Every player has a team. It doesn't matter in the NHL. You might have a skating coach. You might have your coach through the year and all your staff. But what's the off season look like? Know what your player's team is like. Know where you fit and understand, how can you have the most impact within that team, and two, where do you fit within the 24-hour coaching? Because again, if the player's in control of his 24 and you're in control of 2, how can you help get that connectivity, to last a little bit longer, to drive a little bit deeper, and to maybe have a little bit more influence? So I think those pieces are imperative. Again, looking at the time of year for all of us coaches, what's the micro and macro? The micro is the individual piece. Are you developing the individual? The macro, the team concepts, the systems, where you're at. Understand those two dynamics, and that'll help you kind of proceed in terms of the preparation. Again, those lead to the purpose and goals, and it's about trying to paint the picture. Back to telling the story. You want to help paint the picture for your athlete so that they can tell themselves a better story through a well-developed lens. Your job as a coach is to help them develop the clarity in that lens and look the right way. Your must as a coach is you must communicate. You need to care. You need to have a level of authenticity, which can be a coach killer, and it can also be a player killer. And you have to be authentic in your approach. That goes along with building that level of trust and these confidence giving activities. Also, coaches, this is your opportunity to really dive in, especially in times like this. You're trying to help your athletes, and part of it is, what can I dig into in terms of, maybe other sports or different approaches. It's about your personal growth too. Always observe, see what holds, what is explored, and what is asked of the players. Mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. You can flip that right around and fill in the teacher part with the athlete, because I think the same holds true. This for me is huge, because part of owning your process and part of the art of preparation is trying to not be the guy that people label as a hero. And it goes back to my point about authenticity. You need to be you. And the biggest part about that for a player is you need to be consistent. You can't be one way and then change and then flip and then change. And part of not being that hero is doing things for the right reasons. And that's where you need to develop that internal drive. And again, about the timing. It's you need to be the same when no one is watching as is when the building is full. And those two things create that authenticity. And again, that leads to, it leads to the mentality that it's okay to be a pro. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to love to train. It's okay to, eat clean and all the above. Those things are okay. That's part of the story, especially when you're pulled in different directions all over the place. Real quick about learning, how learning happens and going through this. It's a tell me, show me, let me feel, let me explore, problem solve, ask questions, and where's the fun mentality. Asking questions, again, pickaxes, allowing athletes to problem solve. That's a skill within adversity. Stack challenges against them, see how they react. Part of cracking the code, reacting to challenges, tells you a lot about the athlete, is how they're going to react, what their level of willingness is. Really dial into that and search, because that can leave a lot of clues as to where your athletes are and where you can take them. How to make work fun. Where's the fun? Part of this is that gentle massage between making the work fun and creating, that kind of environment that you gotta love the grind. And if you feel the grind in the right way, and if you're part of a group that kind of craves the grind, again, that's one of those, it's mental, but it's one of those soft skills that can become a hard skill, is that piece of learning to love the grind. Sometimes you have to hide the grind a little bit, maybe dangle a carrot in order to get there, embrace it, and love it collectively. Strainer mesh, what gets you through? Again, we talk hard skill and soft skill. I believe constructing character traits, mental conditioning, habits, and the art of teamwork. These things can be conditioned. These things can be built. They can be built right now from home, from any device, as long as there's a willingness on the player's front to explore. That's where we come in and help. Small percentages and improvements are absolute difference makers. As you get up into the higher level, when that strainer mesh gets finer and finer, can be a huge difference maker, can make or break careers. Again, that's something in your control as an athlete, needing to be on this and understanding it's an area of opportunity. The ability to adapt. Measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Albert Einstein. Can be practiced, can be learned. Simple as that. I lived it, I felt it, I know it. It can be learned, but you need to practice it. Compete, the notion of play and being able to nourish the spirit. Don't overlook the power of spirit. We want to help athletes allow that spirit that they all possess to come out. We want it to be able to shine bright. We want that spirit to shine bright in some of the toughest times. Nourish the spirit, and it all comes back to gaining information. Success leaves clues. Life stories, sports stories, nonstop access, read, listen, watch, talk, and communicate. There's great stories everywhere. Search, find, plant seeds, allow athletes to look at things, feed the right fuel, okay? If you want to dig in and you want to take and piece together, success leaves clues. Success will never be the same, but there's clues within it. And again, putting some of the content in front of your athletes in different ways. And again, some players you'll hand a book to and they'll throw it. Some players you'll give something to and they'll read it. Understanding what their makeup is and figuring out within that, it's part of your preparation, part of dealing with it. How can I help them understand success leaves clues? How can I lead them down a path where they're willing to explore, where I don't have to handhold and get to a good place? Because again, being able to pull this, make your own, are big areas of opportunity. And again, when it comes to success, knowing your athletes and helping facilitate how they handle tough times, is you need to watch them. Do they want validation after 1 rep? Do they want it after 10? Do they want it after success? Do they want it after failure? How do they react in a group? Are they better as an individual? Are they all in all the time, or do they hold back in certain situations? And the big one for me, and I remember one of my coaches saying to me at one point, it gets you noticed when you go first. Who's willing to go first and put yourself out there? Again, those are clues that lead to success. Help your athletes understand that. Again, the times that we're in, this comes back to excuses. No ice, no problem. Allow the athlete to figure it out. Let them seek your assistance. You can create your plan where you can help. Can I get better? Absolutely, during these times. And again, it's about designing that environment that is unique. Just real quick comparison, NHL or novice, it doesn't matter. Some of the consistencies to being prepared fall under these titles. Love playing the game, the hunger to improve, the self-drive, the compete, team being a family, always hunting, obviously less or more experience, and coachability. These things are consistent. These are all things that as coaches, I think it's important to note important to understand, and important as you're helping design that path to preparation and self-discovery. And again, dealing with adverse conditions, being able to answer some of these questions and have an understanding on some of these things can service you well, create that connectivity, and help the athlete reach towards that potential. Don't overlook the power of language. You want to give off power, and you want to create that level of excite. And your verbiage can be a great tool when you're trying to help facilitate, the love for preparation. It generates a feeling. Your verbiage can bring clarity. It can speak volumes about the development journey and allow you to help facilitate the story, about that togetherness. It's about giving, and again, about atmospheric creation. If I talk like this on the call right now, no one will listen, but if I put my chest up and pull my shoulders back, I got everybody's attention. You can create that atmosphere, again, the same way through your body language, through your posture, your facial expression, your positive vibe, a giving attitude that you're not holding back, that you're giving your all, that care. And again, creating that atmosphere through your energy goes a long way, especially when you're talking about the things you talked about, we mentioned earlier, about being prepared and loving the journey. If you as a coach is talking about how awesome it is that you're on the journey together and you're doing it together, you can create that vibe. All of a sudden the atmosphere becomes positive. Positive atmospheres make people hungry for more. You get guys that take the barriers down, they want to explore, and all of a sudden you're into a really good place together with your athlete. Again, we'll bring it on the belief. A lot of this was covered already. The process of developing athletes and a process of training sessions. Nothing overly earth-shattering, but again, we're trying to build within a certain process of how certain things work. Communicate and connect, educate the athlete's game, outline a plan or map, strengthen relationship, create the trust and buy-in, grow confidence, take the pulse, know what the fuel sources are, have a knowledge of the athlete's process and the level of ownership to help them increase that drive through nourishing their rituals. Confident, better athlete, greatest gift you can give is that confidence. And again, having the athlete embrace the uniqueness of their training, of their level of preparation. And again, training sessions, I put this in there just because I believe the two can correlate to your on ice and off ice atmosphere. And again, it just shows a little bit about digging in from more of a hard skill standpoint of where athletes are at. Again, do you need ice to get better? No, but you have to be willing to put a plan in place to understand what areas you can attack. Well, you can't be on the ice, and your sessions can follow a very similar roadmap. Harvest the good. Harvest the good. It's about individual growth. It's about uniqueness of the path. It's about what makes a player go, takeaways and implementations. What can you pay forward and own and love the journey? Again, the greatest gift you can give is a level of confidence and being able to help that player tell a better story and fall in love with the art of preparation, see where the opportunities are. Again, being able at the end of things to say, what are challenges? Because I've told myself such a strong, consistent story that there really isn't any challenges. There's just ways to adapt. And it becomes natural. The last about my personal is I lived in this area. Challenges didn't exist. Sure, there were changes in certain situations, but finding ways to adapt in a way that was authentic, in a way that was true, was for me part of the strainer in the mesh. It allowed me to continue to get through to a level because I was willing to do what a lot of players weren't willing to do, but it was real, it was authentic, it was built, it was developed, and it was harnessed. At the end of it, if we can help our players get to combining the love for the process, combining a love for the preparation, just as much as they love the performance, which again is that instant validation, that emotional response, that's where this becomes your own work of art. This is where you build your own book and your own reference guide. You can go back and you can capture and mine for gold. and you can be pretty darn proud of it because it's your own unique development path. Fellas, or ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the presentation. I'd be happy to take questions, and I hope everyone enjoyed. Again, this is something that's near and true to my heart. This is an area that I lived, and now seeing it on the flip side, I'm extremely, extremely passionate about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. That was fantastic. I've been getting texts from people throughout the presentation. You can just feel your passion, through the screen, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. There are some questions that have come through. I'm going to filter it down to 3. One that we seem to get all the time. Do you have any books that you would recommend? I'm going to kind of morph the question related to preparation and this particular topic, and then also maybe a personal favorite book that you had that's not necessarily related to this.
Well, there's a couple right off the top of my head that I've been digging into. One that I just read, it's more about leadership, but I truly believe this topic ties in with leadership. Is The Leader That Has No Title. It's a Robin Sharma book. Another book that I love on these 2 topics by the same author, Joshua Metcalf, Palma Stone, Chop Wood, Carry Water, are huge process-oriented books, level of preparation. Another one that, and again, some of these have been repeat reads to me, but these are all books that I've recommended to a lot of different athletes as well. I'm a big John Gordon fan. I think The Craftsman is phenomenal. Again, it's about taking things and building your craft and the pride that goes into harnessing that craft and nurturing that craft and what that means, that level of mastery. One of my personal favorites, again, John Gordon, is You Win in the Locker Room First. And these all hold similar themes, but I believe that, they're well worth the read. I'm an avid reader. I'm reading all the time. Even if people want to share some of their suggestions, I'd love to dig in and continue to build and grow as well.
We got a question here first that they love the Welland passion from you. But the question is, today's player is more about the why than maybe some athletes in the past. How often are you reviewing with individual players their goals and achievements? Some of those extrinsic motivators. How often are you going back and revisiting those?
Well, I think from my standpoint, and again, I'm coming from a skill development standpoint, every single session. And again, why is huge, and that's actually a great point. So I think that question is phenomenal. And again, I go back to the first slide where the why piece was bolded. Everyone wants to know why. We're in an instant validation world. Every session, and going through that review is, again, through questions, through observation, through understanding, and just spending time. Coaching is about developing those relationships. Each one of those relationships is unique. All of them hold different pieces throughout. So you always need to be reviewing those certain things. And your players, you need to talk to them. You need to ask questions, because a lot of time when you ask questions back, like there's a tactic I use all the time where I'll tell a group, and this is for kids, pretend I know nothing about hockey. Teach me everything I need to know about, such and such. And all of a sudden they'll start blurting out, well, you need to know this, or you need to do that. And then it allows you to, well, why do I need to do that? And then another kid will answer that question. And then all of a sudden you put it back on the group. I use this all the time. You put it right back on the group. So then they can tell you can help weave your way in and help steer it the way that you want to go. But all of a sudden they've now owned it. They've owned the question. I told you, I showed you, I demonstrated it. We ran the drill. Now I asked you, now you tell it back to me. And there's part of, the learning process involved in that is being able to teach that back. They say that that's one of the greatest uptakes that you could get in your learning, is when you're able to take something and teach it back. I use that all the time, and that's all based around the why. When you give them the why and you let them sometimes answer their own why, it holds a lot of merit.
And then the last question, I'm gonna kind of build off of the original question is about how young would you start players journaling? But some of the notes that I took, you mentioned that there's no right or wrong, just right or wrong for you. In terms of self-discovery, how long would you recommend people stick with something if they're trying out journaling? So I guess how young would you start it? And then how long would you try any of these things in terms of self-discovery, whether or not it's for you?
Well, again, I think these things are personal, right? So you need to go through and you need to experiment. I encourage a lot of players, and again, so I'm talking older players, is to leave a notebook handy so that you can capture stuff. But again, for young players, and this goes for coaching youth hockey. I've coached the last 2 years my 9U son, and then this year 10U, where maybe you give them a little homework. Maybe there's an ask where they come in and it's not go home and fill something out, but ask them a question and maybe share some of that feedback, whether it's I just did this with both my boys the other day. I said, I'm looking for inspiration putting this together. My sons are 10 and 12 or 13, sorry. Please write me a paper that tells me what hockey means to you and what we've gone through in this unique period. And it was interesting to read in their own words, what they think, what they see, what they feel, and where they're at. So again, it doesn't have to be a hard structured where it's like, all right, 9:30 journaling and 10 o'clock workout. It's, maybe ask once in a while, hey, put into your thoughts, what'd you see? What'd you feel? What have you done this summer to get better? How can other sports help you become a better hockey player? What are your dreams and aspirations? Well, again, it doesn't have to be structured. And as you filter that back up the ladder, where it's more of those training notes and those training journals, where you go back and you're able to pull some real good things out of there.
Well, I think we'll end it there. There's a recording of the presentation that I'm going to send out, and for everyone on the call, I'm also going to CC Matt on the email. So if you want to continue the dialogue with him, he's already expressed that he's more than willing to do that. Matt, I can't thank you enough for sharing your knowledge and your experiences with us. I know I took meticulous notes as you were speaking, and as I said, you can feel your passion. There's no pretension in what you do, and I think that was pretty inspiring for all of us. So thank you very much. And for everyone who is here, we have another webinar on Friday with Jack Hahn. He is currently writing a book, but just finished his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. Do a great presentation. You can register for that online. But that's it. Matt, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.